Hello everybody and welcome to my first video, and for this project we're going to be building a moth trap. So first we're going to need a bucket to hold all of our little moth friends. We're also going to need a plastic tote. You can use whatever you want here. I just had this laying around and decided to use it to hold some of the electronics. Also going to need a lid for the bucket, and then to gather our moth friends over to the trap we're going to use a black light, and then to power our black light we're going to use a battery. Then for our black light to get power from the battery, we're going to need to hook that up to an inverter. I also went out and got some machine screws just to hold some materials together, along with some corner braces and some 90-degree elbows that I'm going to use as vents in the side of the tote. I actually ended up getting 2 of those, just for some cross flow. To prevent bugs from getting in those vents though, I did end up getting some screens, and also an outlet cover. I did get this extension cord. I had ideas of using it with the inverter and the outlet cover, but it didn't end up working out, so that's scrapped. We also got a rocker switch just so you can kind of control everything from the outside of the bin without having to go inside. We got this rubber foam here as well. It's going to be mostly used just to hold everything in place. Then we got these egg cartons. And this is kind of a moth trap staple. These are kind of just going to go inside the bucket to help the moths kind of grab onto something and not fly around too much inside the bucket and beat up their wings. Definitely don't want that. Also got 2 2x4s that I'm going to be using to secure some materials and 2 sheets of acrylic. I definitely did not need this, but I thought it was too stinking cute, so I got a little DeWalt 9-foot tape measure to add to my collection of tape measures. Now we can move on and start adding some electronics to the bin. First thing is going to be the battery, and I'm going to kind of pin this against the side of the bin with some of that foam and also a 2x4 to really press it up against the side. First, just going to add the foam to the bin. Then we need to measure the length of the 2x4 that I'm going to need to cut to make sure everything fits correctly. I'm going to do this twice because I'm also going to use the other 2x4 to secure the inverter inside the bin as well. And it's off to the table saw. Now with those cut down to side, I'm going to add the foam to the side of one of the 2x4s just so it can be pinned up against the battery to hold it in place. So here I'm just going to mark some areas where I'm going to drill some pilot holes in the side of the bin and the 2x4 just to really secure it in place. Adding our screws here. We're going to switch over to the other side, add the pilot holes and screws on that side as well. And this is really pinching the battery in place, so we're not going to have anything rattling around if we're moving this around. Now with everything screwed into place, we have our battery all secure. Now we have to add our inverter. And luckily these sockets on our inverter actually stick out a little bit past everything else. So we should be able to add this on the second 2x4 and just kind of have it push right up against the plastic. And have our outlet cover be right on the outside where we can cut a hole in the side of the tote and have everything connect up without issue. But first, of course, we need to secure our 2x4 to the bin. Now with that secure and level, we need to figure out how we're going to get our inverter to actually stay up against the side without blocking any of the fan ports. And luckily, if we look at the back, we can see a little bit of space at the bottom where we can add a thin little brace without blocking our fan. So quickly I'm going to mark where I want that brace to be. I figured some of the best material to use as a brace there would be some extra acrylic that I'm going to have laying around, so I just cut off a thin little sheet there. And this should work perfectly. So I line it up and test it out, and yep, it'll definitely work. I can screw in some little pilot holes and use some little mini screws and get this right in place. Got to be really careful here not to split the plastic. And everything's perfect. Give it a quick test, push it up against there. You can actually see it kind of clip down here. It's nice and tight up against the side of the wall. And that thing is not going anywhere, at least forward and backwards. Now I have to figure out how to secure it from going left and right. So I make a mark and do a quick little drill, and I'm going to add some zip ties here to hold it in place. So here I'm going through and making sure that I have all the corners of the zip ties on the corners of the 2x4s, just to make sure there's as much tension as possible. And it turned out great. It's not moving forward and back, and it's not moving left and right. And now we just have to cut out our socket port here. And this is also our first big mistake with the project so far. Ooh! Definitely shouldn't have been using a drill bit of that size for our first hole. But no worries, since that's going to be mostly covered by the outlet cover anyway, it didn't really bother me too much. Now we just have to go in and reseat our inverter in the correct spot, and test to make sure we can still plug it in. And it is all set. Now we just have to attach our outlet cover. First, going to take off the covers themselves and mark our drill hole and get this connected to the side of the tote. I'm going to screw the screw into the middle here and add the nut to the other side to hold it in place. The one thing I notice now is that screw sticks out pretty far. So we're going to have to cut off the excess screw to make sure our inverter sockets maintain a snug fit against the side of our tote. Now I notice that the outlet cover is a little bit wobbly with only a center connection. So I go ahead and add another support screw to the upper right hand corner to hold it in place. So if I end up doing a version 2.0 of the Moth Trap, replacing the outlet cover with a rubber grommet or something similar would probably be at the top of my list, but this works just fine for now. So now that it's all secure into place, I can add back on the covers. And then we can test it out. And it's all set. Next comes some electrical work. So for the tote lid, which I actually happen to be using here as a sitting work table, to securely attach back onto the tote body, I'll need to remove the clamps from the inverter cables. And I'll be replacing those clamps with ring terminal connectors here. Just gotta strip the wire down and then attach our terminal connector. Unfortunately, I don't have any wire crimpers yet, so I just had to clamp down on it with some pliers. But it did the job, and we are all set. Now I just gotta connect it to the negative terminal on the battery. And then bring that down over and connect it to the inverter. Now for our switch, I'm going to take the positive wire and attach a female blade terminal connector. Finally, to complete the circuit, I cut some additional wire to size and add a ring terminal to one end and another blade terminal to the other to connect to the switch. Now that our wiring is all complete, we can give it a test. We see flipping the switch definitely gives power to our inverter, so we are all set. And now comes my janky method of attaching the switch to the outside of the tote. I'm going to give it an outline and then use my drill bit to kind of carve out the inside of the hole. And it's all set. Now we just got to thread on the back brace for our switch and reconnect our wires, and all of the electrical work is done. And of course, got to give it one more test for good measure. And now comes adding the vents to the tote. And this was actually one of my favorite parts of the whole project. So I trace out the size of the elbow on the screen, which I then cut out and use the ends of the elbow to screw the screen down into place. And as you can see here, it worked out perfectly. And now, as with before, comes tracing out the sides of the vent and then screwing it right into place. Luckily it's threaded, so I was able to just screw it right into the side of the tote. Then I could take the other PVC end and just screw it right on to make sure it's nice and stable in place. And I do the same thing with the other vent on the other side. And with that, the electronics and the tote are all complete. Just give it a nice little clean. Now to seal it off from any kind of weather, I just use some Flex Seal around the edges of the screws and the vents to make sure no water's getting inside. Now I know Flex Seal's kind of a meme, but my dehumidifier bucket a couple years ago got a hairline crack right here. It was leaking. And I hit it with some Flex Seal and it's been perfectly fine ever since. Now we can get to working on the part of the moth trap that will actually lure the moths. Here I'm going to use a plastic lid and cut out a hole for the black light to sit inside. Now I ended up actually going out and getting a second lid at the same size, and we're going to use that to hold the funnel in place. So the funnel we're going to use, and it'll actually be a way for the moths to kind of fall down inside the bucket and be held in place and make it a little bit more challenging for them to fly back out. And luckily the shape of the lid actually worked perfectly with the funnel, so all I need to do is cut around this outside edge for it to fit inside. You just flip that around and attach it to the bucket. We see the funnel, fits perfectly right inside the cutout piece. Now of course, like a dink, I forgot to hit the record button, but I did use my jigsaw here to cut off the bottom part of the funnel to make the opening a little bit larger. But same principle still applies. It's just going to sit right in there. We just have a larger opening so the moths can fit inside. Here I'm figuring out how to attach the acrylic fins to the lid. So my intention here is to cut out 4 equal portions of the acrylic to suspend the full length of the blacklight above the bucket, but also provide a nice place for the moths to land and hang out near the light itself. However, what I'm noticing now is that the lid is way flexible. There's no way this is going to hold on to some of those acrylic fins that I want to put on there. So another trip to Home Depot and we get a nice board that I'll cut out in the shape of the lid here and use that to hold the fins. So this time I actually remembered to hit the record button, so I used my jigsaw here to cut out our blacklight hole and the larger circle portion that I'll use to attach the acrylic fins. So here it is all cut out and ready to be used, and I just test to make sure the blacklight will fit through the hole, and I'm not too concerned that it would fall through because I'm still going to use that same plastic lid from before to kind of hold it in place on top of this wood portion. Now I take the acrylic sheets and further mark the length I want to cut out for our fins. Now we can bring it right back over to the table saw and cut them down to length. And with the first one cut, it is looking perfect. Now I just got to repeat the process 3 more times. And now that the fins are all cut down to size, I just mark how I want to attach them to the wood support. And here I'm going to be using those corner braces and those machine screws just to secure it so they can hang from the bottom of the wood. And then here we just repeat the process 3 more times, and then we get to figure out how to make this sit properly on top of the bucket, which as you can see here, it's definitely not going to really sit up there very easily. So I ended up getting some of these plastic foam packing strips, whatever, that we just had laying around in one of our old boxes, and I just cut some slits in there to see how that worked, and the fins fit right in there, and it wobbles a little bit, but it's definitely not going to fall down. Which is actually kind of what I want, because I want to make sure that those fins and the blacklight are easily removable from the top of the bucket. So I just hot glue the foam down and I'm pretty happy with it. And with that done, the moth trap is now complete. So here I'll just show off the setup from start to finish, and I just want to thank everyone for watching my video. I made this without watching any other moth trap videos, so I'm sure there's a lot of variations out there. And if you're interested in moths or other entomology related topics, I highly suggest checking out my fiance's Instagram and or TikTok, Mothwall, and I'll leave a link to her channel down in the description. She has a master's degree in entomology, so I thought this would be a fun project to make for her. Again, thanks for watching, and stay tuned at the end for some footage of what we caught with the trap.